And we are live. Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. I am here tonight with Shannon, Pish Posh Reselling. Shannon, do you want to say hi?
Hi.
Welcome,
Uh,
everybody. I am Jennifer, and you have joined us at Moms Who Resell, where I am a full-time reseller, and I want to meet other moms, other resellers that do this as well, whether it's full-time, part-time, some of the time. I just want to build this community and get to know as many reselling moms as I can. So thank you for joining me, Shannon. I'm excited to have you.
yeah, I've been looking forward to this all week.
Yay. So if you are here tonight, let us know in the comments. Come say a hi. We'll see if we'll have some of the originals on here, usually Coco, Chris. We'll see who shows up tonight.
Alrighty.
But while we're waiting for them, why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your just kind of a quick introduction.
Okay, so quick introduction. I was born in New York, and we've lived in Washington most recently, and now the last couple of years we live in Montana. And I have two boys, 16 and 11. And I've been selling since my oldest was born. Well, a little bit before that, but I
Oh,
kind of
wow.
turned it into my income at that point when I got pregnant with him.
Oh, fun. So you kind of said when you got started, what got you started? How did you get started in reselling?
Well, I think so before that I was working in the school system. I was a sign language interpreter.
Oh,
And
wow.
on my spring breaks or summer breaks, I don't know, we had kind of gotten into eBay. My husband and I, we sold just a few things around the house, like CDs or something like that. And I just remember the moment, the one item that I sold. My mother-in-law was into crafting, and we had been together, and she was into making mosaics, right? And she wanted me to get into like making mosaics. And so I did a few little things for friends where you're breaking up plates or, things like that.
Yeah.
And she was a big thrifter. So she had given me this big pile of just dishes that I could use in my crafting, right? And I remember pulling out this one plate, and the edge of the plate was, I know now it's called reticulated, where it's got all the holes in the plate.
I'll
And
have
it
to write
had a
that down. That's a fun word.
and it had a bluebird on it. And I was like, this plate is really cool. And I don't even remember the maker or anything, but I flipped it over. I'm going to look this up on eBay. And so I look it up and I was like, oh, there was something similar, but not exactly. So we went ahead and put it on at auction, because this was like probably 2005, 2006.
Okay.
And I put it on auction and it sold for like $27 or something.
And
And
you
it
were
was,
about to bust it up to use it for
yeah,
art.
exactly. And it was, so I checked every other plate in the pile.
Yeah.
And it was like, a 50-cent plate or something she picked up somewhere. And I just was like,
Yeah.
mind blown. I was just like, I can buy things at thrift stores and sell them for more.
Yeah. And think about all the plates you broke over the
Yeah,
last however long, throwing some Lennox on the ground.
I know. Who
How
knows
funny.
what she busted up. But anyway,
Right. What a
that
great
kind of got us
start.
into thinking about flipping and reselling. And so I would do it on my like spring break or summer vacation while I was working in the
Hmm.
school district. And then, like I said, we found out we were pregnant and I wanted to stay home. And so I just rolled into doing that as my contribution.
That is awesome. Just popping over to the comments here. We do have who I was expecting. You guys are so loyal. Coco, Chris, thank you so much for being here tonight. Jerry, my sister, who's actually in the other room right now. We've got a summer camp that my daughter is in, and she's going to put on a performance tonight. So as soon as we're done, we're going to head over to the school and watch her little performance. That's always the fun part. Whenever they do theater camps and they do these gymnastics camps, and this week it's a sports camp, so she chose cheerleading, so she'll put on a little
Oh,
performance for that, and that's what makes it worth it, is when you get to see the fun at the end.
right. Cute.
So with your kiddos, they are kind of in the age of wanting to help, or usually. How do your boys help you or are involved in the business?
Okay, so my 16-year-old is not completely interested in it at all. He's very compliant, so if I take him to like he'll go to thrift stores, he'll go to those places, and he always ends up getting good stuff.
Hmm.
But he's not like one to initiate doing anything like that. My 11-year-old is kind of hot and cold. So he's off and on, has helped and has actually done his own listings and has
Okay.
bought some clothing at the thrift store and then, done the listing. And, I was trying to get him into maybe toys or, something that he might be more
Right.
interested in. Um, But, so he'll do that for, like, a little burst of interest in it, and then
Hmm.
it's like,
Too much
"Nah."
work. I'm bored. I'm gonna go
Right,
play. You
right,
know?
exactly.
Yeah. Well,
So,
at least with the summer break, that's what I'm hoping my 8-year-old. She's almost to the age she'll help pull orders, but I want her to be able to list. So eight's
uh-huh,
probably a little young for that. So I'm hoping
yeah,
by 9 or 10 she'll be a little more help. But
right.
she also loves it. She loves going to the thrift stores and
Oh,
she's
nice.
very vocal about it. She'll hold it. Oh, mom, is that for us or for resale? Shh. Okay. I'll tell you
I
later.
know, I know.
They love to be honest.
They both like yard sales better than thrift
Yeah.
stores. I don't know. Yeah, they like
Yeah.
digging.
What else we got here? Lisa, welcome. First time listener. We're excited to have you. Texas lady in the house, welcome. Lincoln in the house. Hi. He's peeking under the table. All right. So, on your channel, you do a lot of vintage. What is your favorite niche and one you wish you knew more about?
Okay, so it's really hard to say a favorite because I always feel like I end up selling so many different niches. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll really get into one for a little while, and then I'll like kind of get bored of that one. And so then I switch to another one and I really get into that one. But I still have listings of all those things. And of course, I've
Mm-hmm.
accumulated like inventory of all
Right.
those things. So it kind of varies, but I do like vintage jewelry. I do like sewing patterns. And
Ooh.
I also like flatware.
Yeah.
So I would say those are probably my 3 top. Like, I sell pretty much a bunch of other things because
Yeah.
I have a hard time just saying, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna be a jewelry seller," because then I'm at the thrift store and I'd have to pass by all this stuff that I know is worth money, right?
Right.
And,
Yeah, I couldn't niche down. There's
no.
no way. I like you said, you get bored. And I
Right,
enjoy learning new stuff. Like
right.
this last what's today? Friday. So yesterday I was at a sale and I picked up fishing lures. I'm like, all right, 20 bucks.
Uh-huh.
Let's buy this box of these and learn about it.
Yeah.
Same with jewelry. Like I haven't gone through it yet, but my plan is to go through
Uh-huh.
this bucket of jewelry that I picked up, or just little pieces here and there and just start learning about that. So
Mhm.
I can't niche down. I think it would
Right,
just, like you said, you'd be leaving so much behind because you would just
right.
walk right past all the hard goods,
Mhm.
all the profits, just to go right to the jewelry counter. Like, no, I can't do
Right.
it.
No, and that's why I like, I've I've like vintage, right? And vintage, it just kind of covers all sorts of different. I'll do vintage clothing, but I'll do vintage, decorative things or,
Hmm.
things like that. But I've always had my eBay store, which has new stuff in it, and it's got,
Hmm.
if I pass a shirt or a brand that I know flips well, I'm gonna grab that. So,
Right.
I prefer vintage. I like you said, the research and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
yeah, I just like the flip. So,
Yep.
and as far as one I wish I knew more about, I don't know glassware very well at all. I know
Yeah.
some major names, but I'm sure especially even like clear glass, I just go past it.
Yep.
I don't know it very well, but
Exactly. But then it leaves it on the table for other people that do know it, and then they're leaving stuff behind that
yeah.
you know.
And there are
So
people
that's
who
the great thing
love
about it.
glassware. So,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah,
yeah, if
there's a
they
guy
want to do
that I
that.
ran into. I'll never meet him again, but I ran into him in line at a church sale, and him and his partner were doing just glassware. And he's saying how much he
Mm,
loves it because these church sales, nobody touches it.
right.
And I'm like, yeah, because I don't know what the heck I'm looking at. I could be looking
Yeah,
at $1 million piece and I wouldn't know it. And he's
right.
got the eye that he knows which ones to grab, and he puts them in his
Mhm,
antique booth. I'm like, great,
right.
that's all for you. So just leave the cameras and the electronics section for me.
Right.
I'll leave you all that glassware.
Right.
That's funny. What is your favorite way to source? You said your boys like garage sales. Are you kind of the same?
Um, you know, so many years I mostly just relied on thrift stores because of timing. That kind of goes
Hmm.
along with being a mom reseller because I was thrifting in like the evenings after my husband, would get home from work, then I'd go out and get groceries and the thrift store is right next door or whatever.
Hmm.
And so I just learned to rely on thrift stores. So I do love
You love.
that. I have a little more flexibility now, and so I can do more garage sales, and I would say estate sales I would prefer over a garage sale just because of the vintage, the possibility of finding vintage.
Right.
Um,
What about
as
pricing at your estate sales? Are they pretty competitive or
you
depends on
know,
the
it's
company?
kind of it's kind of interesting. So our season is very short for garage sales in Montana. Um, you know, it's just the summer months. It's just they might start picking up in May and then they're done in September.
Yeah.
And I've been to a handful of estate sales. There's not even really that many companies who are running estate sales. And so a lot of them are done by family. They're just done, people are just running their own.
Hmm.
And those are the best because those are going to get priced most of the time. They're going to get priced a little bit better. But there was, a couple companies we went to, and the pricing was okay. When you look at what pricing at thrift stores is right now, it was
Right.
pretty much the same.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. So it's
but
just the
yeah,
trick is always learning things that they don't know. And
yeah,
that's thrift stores,
exactly.
that's at estate sales. Like if
Mm,
you are going to go after the glassware or something, like you know that niche and they don't, then you've
right,
you've got it golden.
right.
So we've got a question from Nicole. What do you guys recommend, or do you recommend creating an LLC? And if so, do you guys go through a lawyer or a place like LegalZoom? So for this business, for eBay, we didn't do an LLC. Chris had mentioned right below that if you go over 100, around 100K gross to do an LLC, I don't know what the dollar amount necessarily is, but my understanding is the LLC is more about your liability.
Hmm.
And if selling stuff on eBay isn't very much of a risk. Like if somebody's unhappy with their item, you just refund them. So I couldn't
Hmm.
see someone suing you because you sent them a broken VCR. So I wouldn't see personally this again this could be different for someone else. I hate to give like
Hmm.
legal kind of advice, but for me and my business, I don't see a purpose of switching it to an LLC anytime soon. And for the tax benefits, like Chris said, it'd be once you reach a higher dollar amount, most likely. What
Hmm.
about for you, Shannon?
Yeah,
I've
I've
never.
just done sole proprietor ever
Yep.
since,
I have
the
a
beginning.
really good accountant, so she does all of our books, and by the time
Hmm.
you get all your deductions and everything, there's definitely benefits behind doing it one way versus another, but we haven't had to.
Right.
We've considered it, but then once she pulled all the numbers, it was like, no, it
Hmm.
wasn't worth it.
Hmm.
If we were a riskier business, then I would definitely consider it because then it takes any of your assets away from the
Right.
business. But like I
Yeah.
said, there's no risk. If you don't like my VCR and it's broken or whatever, I'll just refund
Right.
you. You're not going to sue me for my house or
Right.
my whatever.
Right.
Hopefully that answered your question. They have all different options. I do research on lawyers. Again, I'd hate to think this would reach that point that you would need a lawyer. I don't know. Maybe if you started bigger stuff, like $1,000 plus items, but
Mhm.
usually like eBay, I'll just work with eBay or end up losing money and just write it off. But I haven't thought of needing a lawyer for anything.
Mm-mm.
So I guess anyone can sue anybody, but that's my thoughts. All right, let's get to some fun questions. What is your best and your worst buy or flip?
Okay, I'm gonna start with my worst because I was trying to think about it and I was like, honestly, every week there's something that I'm like, why did I buy that? Or you're just
Yep.
like just today, someone offered me $10 for this pair of vintage LL Bean shorts on Poshmark, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Like they've been listed so long, whatever, just take them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but so I asked my husband because my husband actually does quite a bit with me in the reselling. And so during the winter months, actually the last couple of years, we just resell for the winter. And
Okay.
so
Well, you
I
said he
was
does
like,
construction, so that makes sense. Guess you're
yeah,
gonna be his
he,
slower
he
months.
does a lot of finish work and interior, so he could, but he also has some health issues, and we've just found that, you know what, why stress yourself out if you don't have to when we have reselling we can do.
100%.
And so he was like, I said, "Do you remember like a really like a bad flip or a bad buy or anything like that?" And we were like, "No. I mean, there's always just those little
Just
things
little
that here
lessons. Like,
and
yeah, I
there."
won't buy that again.
Yeah, exactly. But nothing, the only thing I could think of is sometimes I have bought lots, like I'd buy a jewelry lot and
Mm-hmm.
I would say, okay, maybe, yeah, one of my last ones I overpaid. And
Right.
like this stuff will, once I get it all listed and I'll probably break even. Like like
Right.
it wasn't the
Yeah,
best
that's the same
buy.
thing. Same category. It's like
Yeah.
usually if you buy bulk, you get a better price. But if
Yeah.
it's still not a great price in the end, and I shouldn't have, like thinking,
Right.
okay, I'll pay $8 a piece on these Starbucks tumblers, but they're only selling for 20 to 22 with
Yeah.
free shipping. Like,
Yeah.
Jennifer, what were you thinking? Like, that was not a
Right.
good buy. But I
Right.
brought it down from 15 to 8 if I bought them all. So I'm like doing the math, but yeah, not a good buy. Eventually, I'll get to that break even or
Mhm.
Scentsy. I did the same thing. I had cleared a table of all these Scentsy warmers. I might be to the break even point by now, but I'm still sitting on probably a dozen of them.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it definitely is more the bulk buys
Yeah.
than the individual one-off.
Right. Because a lot of times, obviously the better you're purchasing, then the less risk there is even on making a bad buy, right? So,
Yep. Yep. They
yeah,
say the
maybe.
profit is in the buy or
Right.
the yeah, is that I'm saying that right? Because
Yeah, yeah.
if you bought it right in the first place and you only spent a quarter or $1 on it,
Uh-huh.
there really is no bad buy. Even if you made $5,
Right.
you still quadrupled your money.
Right. So most of our bad buys we're just getting rid of. I'm like, we're still made something on it, you know.
Hmm.
It's rare, I think, that we've lost money on anything.
Right. Or it's
But
pennies if you do, and you just don't buy that again.
yeah.
All right. So before
But
we
as far as
started, oh,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was gonna tell you about the
Go back
best
to
flip
that.
that we had.
Yes.
Um, so the best one, I would say monetarily, was I did find a pair of vintage Levi's jeans, and they're known as, in the reselling world, it's Big E Levi's jeans, right? So
Okay.
the little red tab on the back, there was
Not
a
Biggie
certain.
the rapper, but
Right.
the E of the
Big capital E.
Okay.
Um, they, for a certain time period, that E on the little red tab was capitalized and not lowercase like it is now. And so that's how
Wow.
you know it's a vintage pair of jeans, except for the fact that, of course, they did a reissue
Oh,
and,
always.
you
Hashtag
know,
Lisa Frank. Yep. They all
exactly.
do it.
And so there is, but a lot of those actually are do sell well also, but just
Mhm.
not as much as the original like 60s. So my pair of jeans was like from the 60s. And we found it
Wow.
at a thrift store at a Goodwill. And this was back in Washington. And my husband actually found it. So, because I don't even like jeans. We weren't doing a ton of clothing at that point. And
Mhm.
he just was like in the mood, I guess, to look at all the jeans. I'm not usually like patient enough like that. He's a little more
Right.
thorough. And so
Yep.
he's looking and he's checking all the Levi's and like he comes across the big E, right? And he's like, okay. So, but there's fakes, right? So he brings it over
Yep.
to me and he's like, "What do you think of this?" Right? And I was like, "Well, um it was in an area of Washington, it was in Tacoma that we didn't normally thrift, and that Goodwill had like $25 on their jeans. And
Oh
this
my
was
goodness.
this was years ago before the prices went up, right? So I was like,
Wow. Probably
$25.
$50 a pair now.
Yeah. And so, and that was just because they were Levi's. They didn't even know anything about the big E or anything, or that they were
Mhm.
vintage. So I was like, you know what? So I quick on my phone, I just did some how can you tell vintage Levi's? And I looked for, there was a single digit on the back of the snap, and there's like all these certain things to look for. And I was like, you know what? Let's take a chance because they did have a return policy, And so I was like, let's go home and research it more and figure it out. And so
Mhm.
I probably went to a Facebook group and showed everything. I said, "What do you think? What's the year, And I went ahead and did an auction. And of course, right away you get offers. You get offers mostly from overseas customers, right?
Mhm.
And um so I just went ahead and let the auction go. And they ended up selling for $630. So that was probably our best flip.
Wow.
Some of those big E Levi's will go, they'll sell for 1,000, they'll sell,
Holy
it just depends
smokes.
on the
So what
rarity.
does that
And
mean that you can't sell Levi's overseas? Is that
y-
true? I remember
well,
I don't know if it was my last live or who said it, but someone said that you can't sell them international.
I think it's Europe. I think it's either the United Kingdom is what I had heard or something like that. And that's just
Okay.
in recent years. The overseas customers I was getting, they were like from um, Vietnam or Philippines, or they were from
Mhm.
Asian countries. And so, and some people are like, "Oh, they're buying them because they're going to use them as a model to fake them." And I was like, "Yeah, but there's also collectors, like
Right?
Japan, vintage denim in Japan is so hot. Like they'll pay
Wow.
big money for that. So I was like, "Well, I'm not going to assume that they're going to do something
Right.
bad with them." But my buyer actually ended up being in California,
There you
the
go.
one who won the
Hopefully they're in a
auction.
museum somewhere, sitting on a
Yeah.
nice pedestal, living their best life.
Yep.
Chrissy, welcome. Happy Friday or Birthday.
Her day.
It's all right. It could be either way, right?
Mhm.
Thank you, Coco. What one thing I wanted to talk to you about, let me find my question here. When we were
Mhm.
chatting before hitting the live button, you had mentioned that you homeschool.
Uh-huh.
So I am just blown away that you can do it all. So how do you juggle time with them to homeschool, reselling, shipping, sourcing, everything? Like that's a whole other level.
Yeah, so I think like when I saw your questions, that question you have up there now, the biggest obstacle. So probably time would be the biggest obstacle. It's better now that they're older. I've
Yeah,
been doing this since my oldest was a baby, right? So there was a limit to how much I could do when I first started.
right.
Um, but now that they're at an age now where it's actually pretty easy, they're homeschooling. they're very self-sufficient with it.
Yeah.
They're on programs that are like that. I would try to, just different places we lived, they'd be on their computers and I would just be on my computer right with them and be
Yeah.
there, if they have questions or anything like that. And then, like
Hmm.
I said, sourcing would be in Washington, thrift stores stayed open till 9. They don't do that here. And
Yeah.
so, but now I have a little more flexibility to go when I want to,
True.
different
And the
places.
oldest is old enough to watch the
Mhm.
littler one, so that's got to
Right.
help. Because
Right.
I'm not
So,
going to lie,
yeah.
I am excited for school to start back up and to get that afternoon free again. Because it's a
Yeah.
whole different lifestyle. But
Yeah.
yeah, summer
But
is,
it's
of course,
but it's
extra
true.
trying to
I
do all.
I I remember that feeling, to just be like, "Oh, I wish I just had like 2 hours to just concentrate," or
Yep.
like an stretch of time to do it, because
Yep.
you're just interrupted. You're just constantly
Right.
interrupted
It's
with it.
amazing how much more you can get done if you just block off that time. And that was
Mhm.
like with this camp this week. So she's going from 5 o'clock to almost 8 o'clock. So it's
Okay, wow.
amazing what I can get done. As long as I've taken some coffee or drank some coffee,
Yeah,
I've got my energy, and that's
yeah,
my second win. So like cross
right.
listing and new listings and like, man, if I could have this 3 hour window every
Mhm,
day, like even
mhm.
with my littlest one home, he's the easy one. Like if I give him a tablet
Okay.
or put some Ninja Turtles on TV, like he's pretty
Uh-huh.
chill. Give him some Cheerios and like yeah, he's my easy one. But it's the
Right,
8-year-old that definitely is more needy.
right.
Her to death, but she definitely requires more attention.
Mhm.
What is your favorite reseller tip that you wish everyone knew?
Well, I would definitely say there's definite value in learning from other resellers. There's definite value in learning from. I mean, now when I started off, it was Facebook groups, like were like the only options, right? And so, and I'm still in some Facebook groups, but I've just between that and YouTube videos, it's good to pick up. It's good to pick up brand names and to kind of learn the types of things to be looking out for, but you also do need to do your own research with it too,
Right.
right? So you're
Yeah,
not going
and
to.
comps change all the time. Like even if
Yes.
one brand was hot a month ago,
Yeah.
that may not be hot anymore. So,
Yeah.
and with
And
different seasons,
honestly,
different holidays, and
honestly that
styles.
the YouTube, environment kind of contributes to that too, right?
Right.
The more that people are talking about it, definitely things, will lose
Yep.
value, as you keep going. But I've
Exactly. Like with
definitely.
retail arbitrage, that was
Yeah.
that's why I was never one reason I was never successful at it was because there was so much saturation and someone would go on and
Mhm.
be like, "Oh, go to Ross and get these certain vans." Well,
Right.
everybody already did that and there's now 10,000 listings.
Right.
So, unless you were first in line. So, yeah, I could see that definitely
Mhm.
saturating it, which is why
Right.
people question when I say some of the
Mhm.
little bolos that I give away.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
there's so many of them. Like, if I give the
Yeah.
category, like yesterday, of remotes, like
Right.
I have a lot of success with random remotes. This one
Mhm.
sold for $40 that controls an electric fireplace. Like,
Yeah.
okay, for one, it's the middle of summer. I couldn't think of a fireplace in 110-degree heat, but someone needs that remote. So
Yeah.
by giving these broad categories, it would never oversaturate because you're
No,
never going to come across this remote multiple times or very rare.
and it's going to depend on your area. I have
Hmm.
found that where I'm watching a reseller, say you're talking about remotes. I looked at remotes today and I'm like, there's nothing, like
Right.
I have
It's all the
never found
same
a
Sony
remote.
ones, Vizios. Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot of or Direct TV. There's
right.
always those the cable or we have Cox for
Exactly.
cable, so we'll have yeah Comcast.
Yeah.
Yep,
So it'll
but
you're
there's the rare
your
ones out
yeah. Your experience is always going to differ from whoever you're watching or whoever you're listening to. But
there. Hmm.
I always feel like it's very beneficial to get that kind of just file these things away in your head,
Yep.
right? Because you're going to end up either you're going to see something later and be like, so many times I like pull, whether it's clothing or just something I see on the shelf and I go, okay, I've heard that before. I know I've
Yep.
heard that. And it makes you stop and it makes you like look it up. Right. And
Exactly.
then you
It's
might
funny
look
how
it up
our
and
brains will do that. It
yeah,
creates its own little Rolodex. So when you're skimming something and it'll instantly grab you.
right.
It's helpful 100% when you're watching
Yeah.
other resellers.
And then when I'm doing like, because I like to sell vintage, I'll even go to antique stores. And there's times where I can find things to flip in the antique store as well. But just being among all the vintage and antiques, it's like honing your eye, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like you're getting yourself familiar with what's valuable, what's out there. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you see it at a yard sale, oh, wait a minute, I saw that, So it's kind of
Right.
like doing research, like
And it's
anything.
visual, so you can
Yeah.
remember it even more than just sold comps on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's smart. That's actually really smart.
Yeah.
So, with your vintage, you mentioned a couple categories with your vintage jewelry. Is
Mhm.
there any more specific that you really hone in on?
Well, I love mid-century. Some of the mid-century I end up finding ends up just staying in my house. But, we don't have a full-on like mid-century look or anything like that, but definitely recently at a yard sale, I was looking at this lamp was in a box and it's very mid-century art deco mid-century. It's um like a gazelle or something like that in the middle of this lamp.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, oh, this is so cool. And they were asking, I don't know, like no, there was no price. And I went up to them and, they wanted me to say the price.
Oh, I
And
hate
I
that.
was like, oh, I don't know. Cause I'm thinking this is a really cool lamp. I know this is probably worth $100,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, I don't want to lowball, but I don't know what they're
Right.
thinking. I haven't even had
Right.
time to look
Your
around the yard
lowball could
sale.
be just what they're looking for. So
Right.
I always want them to make the first
Yeah.
offer. I hate that.
And
You make an offer. I'm
I'm
like, I'll offer you $1. Like, I don't know what to
right.
offer you.
So so the guy like comes up next to me and he's like, how about 5? And I'm like, okay, I'll take that.
Exactly. What
And it
you
was
thought like
lower.
would offend them, he was
Yeah.
happy with it.
Right. And then I turn around and they're like, well, would you be interested in this pole lamp, tension pole lamp? And I'm like, what? It's one of those, it's from the 60s or 50s, and it's a pole that just pushes up into the ceiling and the floor. And then the bulbs come off of it. And it's just so classic mid-century. And I was just like, yeah,
Wow.
I would want that.
How in the world would you ship that?
It does come apart into
Two
pieces,
little pieces. Oh, good.
and my
Yeah, I do
husband
not have success with
is the
lamps.
shipper. Yeah, my
Good.
husband's the shipper. He would totally do it for me. Um, but I kept it. It's in my living room, and it was $10, right? And
That's
so
awesome.
I do love mid-century, and I love anything Scandinavian vintage. And I would just
Okay.
sell that kind of stuff if I could, but it's like we said, I can't niche down.
Right. It's just one of the many. So
Just
how do
one
you ensure authenticity and the quality of some of these like so random items? Like you were saying with the Levi's, you can just
uh-huh.
Google different ways to track that, but like these lamps and how are you able to make sure that it's real and that it's, I mean, valuable? Because you just type in lamp with what did you say was on it? Like a
Like
cheetah or
Gazelle.
something?
Yeah.
Gazelle? Like gazelle lamp? Like
I can't even remember.
how would you
Okay.
even research that?
So Google Lens is an amazing
Yeah.
recent development.
I heard it's got even better. Have you seen the commercial? Not to sidetrack, but there's a
Okay.
commercial where this girl is taking pictures of these plants and they're telling her this plant needs more water. This plant wants
Uh-huh.
more sun. I'm like, Google, this is ridiculous. So, yes, Google Lens is next level.
Right. Yeah, it's gotten a lot better. So that's kind of my starting point usually. And research, I think why I like selling vintage so much is the research, because that would be my rabbit hole where I waste my time, because
Yeah.
after a while it's like, just put a price on it and put it out there, but I'm like, I want to know the whole history of everything that happened beforehand,
Oh,
and
funny.
um but and that's kind of like, I like flatware because you had to research the pattern, and I like
Oh,
finding the
that's a
pattern
rabbit hole.
name.
Oh my goodness. There's a
Yeah.
website. I don't know, I remembered, or I researched it once and I didn't write down the name. And I was
Oh,
on like there's like 48 page catalog. It was Oneida.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. So I finally found it. I'm like, oh sure, I'll remember that. I go to list it a couple weeks later, back to
Gotta
square
start
one.
all over.
40 something
Screenshot.
pages of patterns. Because Google
You-
Lens just it knew it was a fork. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not wrong, but
Okay. So the game changer in that area is that replacements.com, which I don't know where my
I think
book
that's
is.
the website, and it had a
Okay.
whole catalog of
So
all the different
they
patterns.
had a paper copy. They had a paper book for stainless flatware patterns. And so sometimes that was faster because you could flip through pages and like
Yeah.
scan like quicker. And then
Mhm.
if I couldn't find it in the book, because the book was printed like in the 90s, so if the pattern was newer, then you were out of
Mhm.
luck. But then I would go over to replacements and same thing. But see, I was weird because I love that. I'm just like scanning, and it's like a treasure hunt. And so I'd end up
Yeah.
finding the pattern. I'm like,
And you think you find one close, and you're sitting there holding it up, like, "Oh, no,
you're
this one has an extra hole right there."
you got to count the
Silverware is
petals on the
crazy.
flower and everything.
Yep.
But what's awesome is that replacements.com has their own camera search now.
No way.
Yeah. And so you just go to replacements, you go to their website. I just go on my phone and you click the camera in the search bar, and they have their own little lens, and it
Is
is
it
like,
pretty accurate?
it's cranking accurate. And I'm like, you know
Wow.
what? You guys have taken all the fun out of me identifying my patterns.
But now you have an extra hour to look up something else instead of flatware patterns.
I know. And I'm like, I got a list flatware. I'm like, you took all my fun out of it. No, I'm just kidding.
You can bypass it. You can still do it the manual way.
I could if
They'll
I
let
wanted to. But
you.
yeah, there's what I have found too is that there is a Facebook group for everything at
It
this point,
is.
right? And so for
Yeah.
collections, for collectors, there's always a group that if I have something and I'm like, I'm not quite sure, you
Yeah.
join the group, you ask somebody, what do you think of
Yeah.
this? Whatever. The rest of everything else is just dealing with vintage for so long. I can tell when something's old versus like a repro or something like
Yeah.
that.
Comes with the
You know,
experience.
yeah.
For sure. I need to join American Girl. That's another one. Like there's like a whole cult following for
Oh yeah.
American Girl. And if you get their name wrong, wow, there's like a public lynching because they do not take that lightly. So I need to join more American Girl groups because I find them and I'm like,
Yeah.
and I've learned. Well, now I forgot. I'd have to Google it again. But there was something about their skin color, like their
Oh yeah.
their
Body
if
color.
it's body color. Thank you. It's not skin. Body color.
Mhm.
And if it's white versus tan,
Right.
and I forget which
Right.
one's worth more, but one
Yep.
is worth more. But I find them in the wild all the time. But then there's some that are selling faster than others. And so I need to learn, why is one better? Is it because it's
Mhm.
older? Is it because
Mhm.
it's rare? Is it yeah.
Mhm.
And that's one that I need to get. I just need to join the group. That'll be my easy button.
Yeah, and
That's
that's
enough to
kinda
help.
like, I've got some Barbie stuff that I need, to have gotten listed, like a month
Yesterday.
ago or whatever, and it's vintage, and the early Barbies are so like, "Oh, and this color means it's from," "this eyeball color means it was from this year,"
Right.
and I'm just like, "You know what?" I'm going in the Facebook group, and I'm like, "Here's my Barbie, tell me what it is." I could
Yeah.
spend forever reading a website or whatever, and I just don't really wanna do it.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I mean, yeah, while I find them, it's not going to be something that I'm going after constantly. I don't need to build a whole Rolodex. I know American Girl, grab it, then
Right,
research how much she's worth. Because if you're
exactly.
finding her for $5 at a yard sale or a thrift store, it's a no-brainer. You
Mhm,
obviously buy it.
right.
this one's not scripted. What is your grab it no matter what item? If you see it, the price is right, you don't even have to look it up, you're grabbing it.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So you're asking somebody with way too many niches. I would probably get any Oneida flatware. Not there's Oneida that's like I can tell the back stamps when the back stamps are newer. I
Mhm.
kind of skip those because they're not sometimes those patterns are still available, so
Right.
resell's not going to be that great. Um, vintage, yeah, certain flatware I know, like I know
Yep.
brands that, yeah, definitely get these brands, get this. Same thing with patterns. If there's certain patterns, the Vogue, I've done videos on this on my channel, but the large format Vogue patterns are just kind of like, yeah, just get, especially if the price is good, obviously that kind of
Right.
goes without saying. They're just ones that are gonna sell. Um, I don't know. There's certain clothing brands, that I don't bother looking up,
Yeah.
because they'll sell.
Right.
Um,
So what were some more of the flatware? I know Oneida,
mhm.
Rogers and somebody. What are some others that stick out to you?
Okay. I would say Oneida is gonna be probably a sure bet, and it's the most prolific, that's
Mhm.
out there anyway. But I have sold a lot of Reed and Barton. I've sold a lot of, if you can find, again, Scandinavian, if you can find Dansk, if you can find, some of these older, made in Sweden, made in Denmark kind of stainless flatware, that's
Mhm.
gonna be good money. Um, let me think. Like every stainless flatware brand is also gonna have like duds and good, like
Right.
in, you know.
Yep.
I like there's ones I don't pick up. Like I never pick up Wallace, and Cambridge is not super expensive to begin with. You find that at a
Yeah.
lot of thrift stores, but there's certain ones in Cambridge that people are looking
Yeah.
for.
But
Um,
you'd have to almost know it already because you can't sit there
yeah,
and spend 30 minutes going through
trying to
and finding
figure
the
out,
pattern. I mean, now
right.
that replacements has a Google lens, but
Yeah, yeah. But
it
it's
would take
also
too much
sometimes
time.
it's just kind of the look of it or the feel of it. There's a lot of flatware you pick up and you're just like, ugh, because it's so thin and like
Yeah.
it could bend or whatever. But if something is solid, just has that good feel, even if it's a gourmet settings from Walmart, but it's solid, somebody wants that. They still
Right.
want to replace it. It's just it
Yeah.
might not sell for $10 a fork or $20 a fork, but it might sell for $5 a fork.
Yeah. Still
So,
worth something for sure.
mhm.
Coco says for her it's shoes, even though you love plush. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's the shoes so far. I've got so many shoes right now. And it has to be a screaming deal for me to grab shoes because I need
Mhm.
to get rid of I need to get rid of them. Got
Yeah.
too many shoes.
I'm down to
Um,
just mostly buying shoes if they don't need any kind of cleaning.
I did that from the beginning.
Yeah.
When I very first started, I went full on Harry Tornado, line them all up
Uh-huh.
and clean them in a lot. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Like,
No.
no. So I'm making sure that I'm buying them right in the first place, that they need very little cleaning, if any.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
those are the ones I'm grabbing. If they're already trashed, I'm not here to give them a new life. Like,
Right.
stay in the
Right.
thrift store, someone else can buy them
Yep.
because that took up too much time. I
Yep.
even got the Clorox pen that he talked about, um,
Mhm.
some kind of Clorox squishy pen that you can lather it up and scrub it down, and that works
Yeah.
great, but
Yeah.
I don't want to spend the time.
Right. Exactly.
Same with golf clubs. If they're super dirty and
Mm.
dingy, I just leave them. I mean,
Mhm.
unless it's like a $500 pair of Callaways, okay, I'll clean them. But
Right.
generally speaking, Let's see. What have I missed? I kind of went out of order here. Your biggest pet peeve in reselling.
Okay, so I think for me, it's kind of like it's resentment over the fact that you can't just list things and forget them. Like you can't just have an eBay store where you're like, look, here my stuff is available for sale. And when somebody
Mm-hmm.
wants it, like I feel like I don't know, you're so forced to list every day. You're so
Mm-hmm.
forced to, either promote or, I mean, I know the reselling world has changed a lot since I started, but I think right now it's that, a couple days go by and I've got other things in life that are important and I'm dealing with. And I'm like,
Right.
seriously, eBay goes dead because I didn't babysit it for 2 days, like so I get like so resentful over that fact, and I'm just like, well,
Yep.
forget it. I'm gonna list on Ruby Lane then. I don't need you.
We don't
But
need you, eBay.
I also do make the most money on eBay. So then I'm like, fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no matter how much I complain about it, and there was this whole thing that went down where like I was super close to being done with eBay, but then it's like I can't be. They are still this big and
Yeah,
this huge part of my business that
yeah,
you can't give up on it. And that's what stinks because they know that and they know
yeah,
they don't care about us sellers because there's always going to be sellers.
right.
But as a seller, it's like tisk tisk, like care about us, make us want to stay, not stay
Mhm.
because we have to.
Right. Yeah.
uh
At
Coco
one
said
point,
something funny here
oh,
that she wants, they got to be less dirty. I want profit, not
net
projects.
projects. Yeah, because that's cutting into your profit, the more
It is.
time you have to spend on it. Like I said, my husband is very more detail oriented than I am, and I just totally let him if he picks up a pair of shoes and they need work, I'm like, you know, he'll do the work. Like he'll
Mm-hmm.
do it. Like it doesn't bother him, and there's times where he'll be like, "Nah, it's not I don't feel like doing that. It's not worth it," or whatever. But
Right.
I don't bring stuff home for him like, "Hey, this is great, but it needs you to clean it." You know?
Right.
I'm
I
like, I
want
let
this,
him make
but
that
can you go clean it for me?
right. He's so awesome. He'll do it anyway. I'm like, "Oh, look, I got a Cutco knife block the other day and it was like it was my little bin store. It's not Goodwill. It's just this little private bin store. And I get this like pile of stuff and it's like $5, right? So this Cutco knife block was like nothing. Didn't cost
Mm-hmm.
anything, but I was like, "Oh, look, it's kind of got a scratch." And he's like, "I'll fix it." I'm like, "Thank you."
That's awesome. So how do you see your business growing in the future? What are some of
Hmm.
your goals?
Okay. I would say I don't know if this is reality or not, or if I even want it to be a reality, but I I've always wanted to streamline a little bit better. Not necessarily, I don't know, niching down or anything like that, but I feel like I do end up spreading myself too thin. I know that. I'm just like, "You know what? I'm gonna open this store, and then I'm gonna open this Etsy shop, and then I'm gonna open this Etsy shop for this thing." And
Mm-hmm.
pretty soon I'm only giving each little thing just a little bit,
Right.
and I was like, so every once in a while I'm like, "You know what? You should just have eBay and you should have like Ruby Lane is where I prefer to put my vintage now." But
Okay.
I also have Etsy. My sewing patterns do really well on Etsy, so I have a sewing pattern shop there that's been neglected because I just haven't had the mental space for it.
Right.
And I'm like, I have this vision of like, you know what, you need to just get yourself organized.
Just
And
creating
like
systems.
figure it
That's
out. But
what it
then I'm
comes
like,
down
but
to.
I've been doing this for 16 years this way of just like
Right.
all over and it's been fine. So,
Yeah. That's
um
where, same thing with like cross listing. It's just trying to prioritize and finding the time to do
mhm,
it when you still can't neglect the other pots of everything else, but
right.
you know the benefit of cross-listing it or putting them on their
Right.
special sites and
Right. And then, of course, like I started, I did YouTube a little bit back in 2020 and I didn't stay with it for very long, but I just started my channel back up again, like in
Mhm.
October. And, so that's kind of another little side shoot, of the
Yep.
business that I would like to, grow that more
Yeah. Well, it's
too.
already heading out. You're over how many subs do you have now? Over 3,000?
3,000, I just hit 3,000. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super awesome, especially if you took that long of a break. I know YouTube is just as picky if you stop doing stuff,
Oh,
if
yeah,
not
for
worse,
sure.
it is.
Yep.
Coco, thank you so much for joining us tonight and good luck
Mhm.
on your whatnot. You're going to crush it. And Bell Resells, you missed it. Looking forward to this new episode. It's all right. They'll be here for replay. So finish off this one with us. We're wrapping up, and then you can
Uh,
go back and watch it from the beginning. And then next week, 9 p.m. Eastern, it is getting windy out there. I hear something. Ooh.
Hmm.
We're in the middle of monsoon season, so now every evening, pretty close to
Oh,
every evening, we get a good thunderstorm coming in. But
gotcha.
every night we have plans to go swimming, and then we get a storm.
Mhm.
Yep. But that's the perk of being on Pacific time. So it's only 6:50 here, and my daughter
Oh,
still has
that's
camp
right.
for another hour.
Mhm.
So we've got to stay entertained. But let's go back to comments. I think we are caught up there. And I think I've answered all or asked all the questions. So, Shannon, I just want to thank you so much for meeting with me tonight. It was such a
Yeah,
pleasure meeting you. And
likewise.
I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And if you were late,
Definitely.
I appreciate you still coming and hopefully watching that replay and getting as much out of this as I did. So I know now I need to start watching for those patterns and mid-century modern and random light poles that go up to the ceiling and vintage Levi. That is one that's going to stick.
Levi's.
I got to look for these. I'm sure I'll never find it in the wild, but
Well,
if it
just
comes
go
across,
ahead, go look on eBay selling prices because this was several years ago, and I'm sure, my $630 sale would be worth more now,
wow. Yeah,
you know.
I'll find some YouTube videos and learn what they are. So it's
Mhm.
in that back of the Rolodex
Yeah.
to instantly go there. So if anyone who's on here, make sure to head over to her channels. She's on Instagram, she's on YouTube, Pish Posh Reselling, and subscribe over there if you haven't already. And I hope everyone has a fabulous, fabulous weekend. Thank you again, Shannon.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Everyone have a good night.